Hi, Shirley Peters here. Thanks for joining me. Today we have a pretty landscape from Tasmania. A little building in the middle, a homestead, 2-storey, very traditional. In fact, it looks very English to me, except for the fact that obviously in drought and the hills are brown in front and behind. I think they've had rain since. This was earlier this year. And I thought I'd just add some, I don't know if you can see that very clearly, some sheep in the foreground. Bit of fun. Anyway, I'm using watercolours, I'm using Arches Rough, and my brushes are all mentioned below. So I'll just turn the camera and we'll get started. And if you remember to like and subscribe, that would be fantastic if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, because that way you're notified when I upload a new one, a new video. But in the meantime, thank you for being here. I'll just turn this around now. Oops. To me, for skies, I just go into the ultramarine blue and the cobalt or cerulean type blues. I've got some greeny blues and some pinky blues there, so I mix them all together. And sometimes I mix them badly so that they don't quite, when they go on the paper, you get different colours. So I'm very much a see what happens type of painter for the skies. So that colour's gone quite well on there, and it's on dry paper. What I'll do now is dry off my brush, and on the side of just let it run through that colour and pull out some of the cloud shapes that are towards the back of that area. There's one or two up the top there. A bit of smooth that out, I suppose. Can't be too strong with the sky. I might just take a cloud out this side as well. These are very easy type of clouds to do. You're recording. Okay, the hills are brown, so I'll just get some. I might just use the burnt umber, and I'm going to put those in a bit below my pencil line so that it just crawls up to the pencil. Same over this side. So you get that mixture of the brown is crawling up that way and looking like little trees growing up into the sky. And following my sketch, I'll bring some of this down that way. I might add a tiny bit of green to that brown for the next paddock, just to try and differentiate the paddocks behind. A little bit more green on this side. A bit more water too. So, throwing that up, doesn't matter. I'm going to pull that down into the building there. I'll try and remember to leave the... Oh, what I was going to do was just put that brown colour over the building. It's yellow, that building, so it won't matter. Same here. Now, I don't want any of those white areas left up, so I've got to join those all up, even if it's just with a few strokes like that. Now the paddock area around the house is going to be a little bit stronger green, as is this side. I'm just going to fantasise a little bit more with this green, because in reality it's brown. And then to the foreground I'll bring out a nice sort of orangey paddock colour. Oh, just realised I was supposed to leave some. Okay, I'll leave that part there, I'll leave that part there. See if I can make that up into the river. Now, just bringing all this forward. I'll have to hold this up. So this is the paddocks that are obviously freshly mowed or reaped. The whole concept of this is it goes right down there to the house. I think that's what attracted me to the photograph in the first place. Sometimes it's important to remember why you took a picture, because, or did a sketch, because that's important that you emphasise that quality. So that's the beginning of that's the basic layout, the underpainting, I guess you'd call it. Sometimes I do this and then I come in with acrylic paint. I often use watercolour as an underpainting when I'm out on paper, and I love to actually put acrylic on paper as well. But in this case I'm going to dry this off so it's done quickly, and then we'll get on to adding the beautiful detail. I shall start with medium-sized mop and some blue colours, mainly, so I might make it ultramarine blue, and a tiny bit of purple in with it, just to give it that interesting colour at the background here. And I'm just going to make some shapes on the hills so that it looks like trees growing behind. And I'll start with the blue. Just do it here and there, I won't do it everywhere. I'll pretend that they're half bald, which they kind of are. I drag the heel of the brush sometimes like that and tap the top edge. Same here. While I'm doing that, I'll just go back with a tiny bit of green and drop it in here and there while it's wet. And the green will just help it look more like the trees that they are. But because they're so far away, they have a blue tinge to them. What's at the back there? So when you get further away, you get paler, so just wet your brush a little bit more. Make sure you've got blue on the brush too. Go right out to there. This side. And it doesn't hurt to just push the brush up beyond the tree, beyond the mountainside there, to get that feeling of height. Some of the trees are bigger and they're sticking up over the top of the ridge. Could even be on the other side of the ridge and just define it. Now you'll find that will all fade away. It should. And I'll leave those as they are, and I'll come straight down to the buildings because just need to darken some of these. While I've got the green, I'll start putting in the foliage of these trees that are around the homestead. Some of them are in front, which means the bottoms of them will be further down towards the bottom of the page, and some behind. Got some long ones there that I need to go back in a minute and sort out their trunks. Trunks are visible. Here I'm just going to take a little bit of care to paint in the background behind these two trees. I'll add a bit of blue to the green and see if I can darken. I'll add a bit of brown to the green. See how dark I can get that, because I need that to be nearly black. Somewhere I always want black in a painting. I usually like light, very, very light, if not white. The darkest, I really love to get to a dark area that's equivalent to black. Okay, so I'll just put these high foliage points up there. Huge trees when you consider how tall they are above that house. So I'm just leaving some branches there to be played with later on. Then there's more foliage here, and distant foliage you really just need to press your brush down and see what shapes you can create by doing that. Okay, come back with a bit of blue, purpley blue. So what I'm going to be doing is ultramarine blue and a bit of purple there. Underneath all these tree shapes, put the dark in, all the way around, blue and purple, even there, and down along here. Now, when I can, that means when it's just the right dryness, I shall drag my finger up through those to create the stems and the trunks of the trees and the bushes. So just doing a combination of brown, and they're very dark, those ones out the front. A couple of patterns of things, a few lines. A hint of a fence. I'm going to do a fence across there, and I'll go back to the house now. I'm going to do that red roof. I do think that's fairly important, so I'll just pick a magenta, a bit of orange, more magenta, and I'll do one side normal colour, and I'll try and see if I can darken on the other. Now this particular outer building is a different colour, but I'm going to make it the same red. I think they made a mistake. I think they should have painted that same red. Just absorb it a bit. It's a bit too, I don't know, a bit too dark, I thought. I'll come back to that in a sec. I just wanted to, okay, I want to get a bit of brown on my brush, a bit of that red in there, and put an edge around here. That's going to be an edge of waterway going through there. I'll add a little bit of yellow to it here and there just to make it interesting. One colour never, always a couple of colours at once. And while my water's clean and my brush is clean, I'll put a line of the blue, very strong ultramarine blue there, across the back edge. And once again, using the trick of just plain water on the brush. The brush has to be just wet enough to be able to draw that blue down into the white area. Now, this side of the what would you call that? The dam, the river. I'm just going to darken it a little bit there along the edge. Run it across there, across into that. Emphasising, ignoring my sketch of where the sheep are. I'll come back to them later. So I just really want to put that feeling of the paddocks coming up towards the audience. Actually goes down and then goes back up again. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to get that feeling. So I'll put some of these lines in. Now I'm going to come back over them with wetness, just water. Soften them out as if they're out of focus. So you don't need all those sharp lines in the foreground. Okay, I'll go to one of these flat brushes now. Starting at the side here, just see how I go, just experimenting with how wet that is. So I'm going to be smudging the dark into the light to give that feeling. Just okay. I want to try and create the roundness of these small hills. By touching that dark edge that's underneath those bushes that I put in before, it's drawing it out into the centre a little bit. Smudging it across, so that's quite good. It's just what I like. So that makes it so that the trees are not sitting, floating. It anchors them down by touching a little bit of water to them. And lets that water run down into the paddock. Just for this is possibly ready now. I don't have much in the way of a fingernail. Just see what I can find. My credit card thing. There it is. See if I can just do this vertical. Just tiny little. And then larger at the beginning, the front of the picture. Not making sense today. Every now and then, just doesn't necessarily have to make sense either. It can be just random. Kind of thinking I wouldn't mind seeing what it looks like, having a bit of just putting some darkness in there. Don't know whether this is going to work or not. Yes, it doesn't look too bad. It's certainly got a lot of texture. What do I do? Green again, I suppose. Strong green at the edge there, as if there's foliage as well. drag it down. Okay. One of the problems with that, I can see a problem with that, it's going to look different at the back unless I do the same thing behind. So I will do a little bit of texture, I guess you could call it. Scrubbing out, that'll help, yep. So as you can see, I'm just making it up as I go along. Haven't got a clue really. It's getting very textury at the front. I don't mind it. Okay, I'll finish the house and finish the area around the house, and then we can have a bit of fun with the sheep. Yeah, okay. The houses are a little bit yellowy, warmy colour, so let's put that across. And once again, less is more with this, with these types of buildings. If you just go for a quick stripe, you can end up with a much better image than if you try and fiddle. That said, just going to put in a little bit of a, I want to actually, I'm trying to think, I should wait for that to dry, but I won't bother. Okay, it's going to go across. At the back here, more trees that need attention. So I'm mixing that blue and the green together, trying just to get a dark colour on the brush. Scrape it in there. And behind. Darkening some of that up. It's a nice colour, this brown mixed with a bit of the red, the blue together. Make a sort of a purpley, bit more blue. Purpley colour. Just define a couple of the front, make the front bushes stand out by putting dark behind them like that. And then dark underneath again. You'll notice how this is all highlighted. This is dried lighter, not highlighted, just dried lighter. And darken it up again. I might just go in between these stems. So just trying to clarify, I'm pretty sure the sun's above to the left. So these trees over here really need to be defined a bit more. So what I'm going to do, I kind of have to come back this way, as if the light's on the left. So what I'm doing is putting some dark there, and then I shall put moisture on the left side of that dark area. Need to make a little bit bigger towards the front too. Now I'll wet my brush again, do that again. Right. Behind here, I'm going to define this area just to make that beautiful building, beautiful hill shape working. Touch in some dark green, and then I'll touch in some blue, pinky blue, to mix with that green. And I'll just continue with those. I'll put some what could be trees in there. Okay. Just going back to that shape here. Trees themselves have got very light trunks, but I can add the brown in on one side. Little hints here of activity and maybe the odd old fence. Darken this area where the water's edge is. Pull that up. Whenever you see anything looking a bit dull, add a colour to it and see what happens. Like there, it's a bit dull for me. Oh, and I look at the picture, the photograph, and there's some beautiful lines going across the hill like that, which are areas that have been tilled. Fresh dirt, fresh earth, beautiful. Just a hint of it there. There's some more over this side too. I don't know whether I should put it in, but knowing me, I will. Yes, okay, that's nice. And just when you do a line like that, put a bit of water beside it and pull it down into the water so that it doesn't become too perfect. You want to sort of make things disappear a little bit. Now, the sheep. I'm going to do the sheep. They're basically a neutral bluey colour. Bluey browny. Don't know what they are. To make sure it's dry enough too. Of course, they've got to stand out, so I'm going to have to make them quite grey. I'll put some red into them. I'll make them a warm grey. I'm going to practice one here. I think I'll make it a little bit, I'll add a bit more yellow to it. Gosh, it's whatever colour you want, it's so neutral, it's pretty hard to pick. So I'll add some more blue to that brown. So I'll end up with just that neutral, muddy brown colour. And looking at the sheet, they're kind of waiting for this to dry a little bit too. I'll do them a little bit paler than normal. A little bit of a shape like that. Up at the back. There's a few together here. One or two over here. And their legs are quite legs are almost not there, to tell you the truth. Kind of thinking I won't put legs in. Might just put their little heads down. And then instead of legs, let's just go for a tiny bit of shadow under each one. Shadow has to be a different tone, has to be paler, I think. Okay. I'll come back later and put some very thin, I could do it now actually. I'll use my rigger. Thin little legs, I'm just trying to work out how they work. They kind of come down in pairs. And they're not right at the back. Kind of a little bit up in the middle. So I'm deliberately keeping it as rough as I can. And I can see here I've lost my edges because it's in the wetness of that area. Oh, it's very naughty. I'll come back later and fix that. I'll show you how to fix that. Sure to be a method. So using the magenta again on that little bit of roof top there. And coming into blue, mixing blue with brown to get a nice dark little, still very wet there, it's running. I should stop and not do that. Just goes to show how you have to allow for areas to, when you're putting in detail, you really do need to allow for areas to dry. So I'll go and get that dryer. That's the only way I can do it. Now, going to put these couple of branches here and there that need to be added, and this is where I like to use a thin flat brush because it gives you the opportunity to make very fine lines. Same here. I do have the rigger, but the rigger is sometimes a little bit out of control, so you end up with awkward branches that you don't necessarily need. But that said, as you can see, it's pretty good. Put a shadow underneath that eave, that side. Why did I leave? Oh yes, chimney is good enough like that. Just to enrich the greenery on some of these, just going to get a really pretty green on my brush and just very lightly tap it over some of these areas. Just roll the brush backwards and forwards, and that way it picks the painting up. Sometimes it can start to look really dull, so just at the end grab some extreme colour like that. Then after a little while, just wet it up as well. Once again, don't do it all the same. Some of it's strong and sharp edged and others soft. And I might just bring that really dark. I'll get the really dark green. Mix it with a bit of the blue and red, that neutral grey I had. I'm mixing in with a bit of green there. Really darken this up. Yes, that makes it more interesting. This area here, behind the house, once again a couple of little branches. These bushes here all need to have dark on the right hand side, just to be consistent with where the sun's coming from. Same here, this. Now add a bit of water just to smudge this in, otherwise it'll start to become too literal. Soften the side, that's it. Coming back here, I'll just scrub some areas there just to add variety to the different mark making you want. And I want to blend it together so the eye thinks it all belongs. So that sweep comes around and joins with the house. Okay. That looks good, that looks good. I won't fiddle with those. What I might do is, I might indicate that there's a bit of a crossing there. Looks like I need a crossing, so I'll put some rocks in, as if there's a bit of something happening. It will join the front to the back and make it look like they've thrown some rocks down to let the animals come across or something like that. Where the creek joins the other side. So I'm just making up a landscape here, totally unrealistic. Okay, now what I thought I would do is fence posts, kind of, across here, because they're in the picture. They do have a lot of fence posts actually, but they're all very white, so it's hard to see. I'll put them in like that. Can't see them all. I'll put a few down here. How are my sheep going? Now that it's dried, just smooth them out a little bit. I'll come back with a little bit of gouache over them, I think, possibly. In the back here, some more detail. Tiny little dots. Just makes it look like stuff's happening. In reality, I've made a very light paddock there, but that's okay. The building's in there. Now, one of the things I like to look at and make sure not one thing is different to the other in so much as it's all sketchy. Nothing totally detailed. So it's all pretty loose. Providing it's all loose, I feel like it's working. I'm just going to get some paint, white paint. Actually, I don't know that I will, now that I think about it. Oh, I'll come back again. I might just try and just scrub the tops of these sheep out. I was planning, oh, no sheep on that one. I was planning on putting a little bit of light on each one. If I can scrub out their back, that will be light enough. If I can't, I'll come over it with white. So I'll just see how I go lifting out the top. I'm going to put a bit more paper so I can wipe my brush. So I'll wet the brush, wet the paint, dry the brush, and then pick the paint out. Yeah, that's giving a nice sort of feel to the little sheep there. So even though they're not quite the right shape, it doesn't matter. Little lumps. People will look at them and go, are they goats? What are they? But that happens when you drive past animals. So have them dark to start with. There you go. And pick them out. And this way they're just looking a little bit rounder than I had them. And therefore, that one's got a bit of a crooked little head on him. Nearly there. He looks like a bison. Ah, well, with a horn at the front. Now, of course, once I start picking out like this, I just love doing this. So it's especially fun to do on foliage, because once you pick it out, if you get a lovely texture and a gradation of dark to light that you can't, or you can get with paint, but you've really got to be focused on it. So if you're very casual like this, like I've been, it helps to just come back later, throw the dark in, scribble it out like that. Even these ones here, I wanted to get a light side of them, so they look like they were rounded. That works there. I won't go all over, because that's the thing. You've always got to stop yourself from overdoing things. I'll just make that bush beside the house a little bit more obvious. Okay. And in return, I'm going to scrub out some of the, back out the branches that I half left in, and then I went over. The idea of those is you can come back and take off that dark layer, and you're left with a rounded look to the branch. Okay, this is called fiddling. Do try and work the tree to keep its magnificent sort of shapes. Sometimes hard to do. I'm almost losing this shape there, but what else can I do? Once I start fiddling, I'll just soften those ones up because they're looking a bit like ducks. And I think that might be it. I'm going to call that a day. Can't see. One or two, I might put a couple of little trees, like dead trees, growing in front of this waterway. That way I can just bring attention to the fact that it's got something happening. Yeah, I might do some horizontals. That always helps. Oh yes, under these, that's the other thing, under these sort of stumps for the fences, you usually get a bit of a shadow. It's either the shadow from the actual upright, or it's just a little bit of extra growth in the grass because the moisture falls down there. Okay, couple of lines there. Put some grasses along the edge here as if that's something that can grow. I'll do some small ones. A little bit of a feature over there. Okie dokie, that'll do. I'll give it a signature. I always challenge myself to see if I can do it with a rigger. I usually get about as far as 1 or 2 letters and I give up. I'll see if I can go all the way through. Maybe I should have it as a test that as soon as I can't sign it with a rigger, I need a new rigger. It's always good to blame your tools. Okay, can I fix those sheep? Let's see if I can give a little bit of a neatening up. That's kind of helpful. Just clean up that grass behind there so it's not such a distraction. It's almost like retouching. If you had a photograph, you'd retouch that grass out so that the sheep stood out. So definitely can do it on a painting. And of course, I can't resist. I will have a go with the this paint. You can wet it up again, but you should do it at the beginning of the day rather than just a minute before you need it. I know it's a bit twee. Now hopefully that white will fade away and it won't stand out too much, because it's probably not the best idea. But anyway, there's my sheep, there's the landscape, and I hope you like this painting. So there's the painting. Thanks very much for watching, sticking with me this time. And the photograph is available. I'll put them both on the website, and you can download them and create your own little rural scene. So thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.